Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome again to Syriana Analysis. I'm your host, Kevork Almassian. Thank you very much for tuning in to today's live streaming, guys. I appreciate you all, whether you're watching me on YouTube or on Rumble, and I wholeheartedly apologize from you for this delay. And I had to postpone the live streaming because the guest was not able to log in or access StreamYard because her browser doesn't support it, and I asked her multiple times to download a different browser if StreamYard doesn't work, but apparently her internet or it was difficult for her to install another browser. So here I am here on Syriana Analysis going to improvise for you this live streaming because originally I prepared my questions and I wanted to hear the perspective and the opinion of a respected analyst from Lebanon. And she is a very, I would say, I just saw a video of her 17 years ago in 2007 when she was analyzing the Middle Eastern or West Asian politics on international media outlets. So I thought it would be a brilliant idea to have her on this channel and discuss with her and chat with her what's happening in Palestine, in Lebanon, in Syria today, and also the potential retaliation of Iran and Hezbollah against Israel. But today what I'm going to do is to improvise this live streaming, and I will try to answer to your questions because you're also curious to know what's happening in the region. And I would like to start this conversation with you guys with the recent election of Hamas, of a new a leader of a political bureau. I just want to give you a little bit context and a little bit history because without history and context, we will not understand what's happening nowadays in Palestine, in Gaza, and especially with the Palestinian organization Hamas. And everybody knows that Hamas has been formed in 87, the year that I was born. And there are different, let's say, speculations, but also documents and arguments vis-a-vis Hamas, some of which is pro and some of which is against. I mean, the natural argument of it is that the Palestinians were subjugated and occupied and they formed a resistance, an armed resistance. You maybe agree or disagree with their ideology, you agree or disagree with the Islamist character of this resistance, because before Hamas, remember, the resistance who was carrying the armed struggle against the Israeli occupation forces were not Islamists. They were left-wingers, some of which were socialists, some of which were communists, some of which were nationalists, right? And they were not Islamists. But when Hamas was formed in 87, Israel, from its side, thought it's a brilliant idea to help the creation of Hamas or to help the expansion of the influence of Hamas in the Gaza Strip, because once an Islamist or an Islamic, let's say, group occupies the Gaza Strip, then they will say we don't have a partner to negotiate, and they will separate the West Bank and the Gaza Strip from each other. And this is what the Israelis have done. If you see the course of the events in the past 2 to 3 decades, you will see that Israel was determined or was planning on pumping up the status of Hamas in Gaza, because the bigger the Hamas is, the bigger the Frankenstein is for Israel, and the bigger the argument is on the Israeli side that why would we negotiate with the Palestinians if they have Hamas, and Hamas is not serious with the peace agreement or peace negotiations, and they want to liberate from the river to the sea, so we don't have a partner to negotiate with them. And also from the security perspective, when Hamas starts firing rockets or fight against the Israeli occupation forces, they will draw parallels between Hamas and Al-Qaeda and ISIS, and there are huge differences between them. At the same time, they will also try to radicalize some of the grassroots of the Hamas people. When you really annihilate the people and when you subjugate them, there will be some aggressive reactions against you. So this was the bet of Israel, right, in the past. And they succeeded in this. In 2006, Hamas won the elections. And in 2007, there was a civil war between the PLO, the Palestinian Liberation Organization, or Fatah, and Hamas managed to kick out the Palestinian Authority from the Gaza Strip, and the complete separation happened between Gaza and the West Bank, right? And since then, Hamas has been ruling the Gaza Strip, and the West Bank has been ruled by the Palestinian Liberation Organization, or Fatah. Fatah, the leadership of Fatah nowadays are mostly pro-American, and they have a consistent and daily coordination with the Israeli security apparatuses against Hamas and against other groups who carry arms against the Israeli occupation forces. So this is what happened in the past. However, in let's say after 2007, when Hamas occupied Gaza, the Israelis had another brilliant idea, and that is to allow Qatar and Turkey to flow money inside of the Gaza Strip, because they wanted to replace the Iranian, Hezbollah, and the Syrian influence over Hamas by a Qatari Turkish influence. So the Qataris and the Turks, they spent I don't know, like hundreds of millions of dollars in the Gaza Strip, right? In order to build buildings, malls, supermarkets, schools, TV channels, media outlets, in non-governmental organizations, humanitarian organizations, and also Al Jazeera, which is the I would say the Qatari long arm in the region, which is, in my opinion, it's a psyop against the people in the region. Those are the people who control the public opinion in the Gaza Strip. Al Jazeera, Qatari media outlets, Qatari money, Qatari NGOs, Qatari, everything was Qatari and Turkish. And accordingly, we started seeing pictures of Hamad bin Jassim. We started seeing pictures of Erdogan in the streets of Gaza, saying that those are the liberators of Jerusalem, and Qatar and Turkey will liberate Jerusalem. So what happened is starting from 2007 till 2010, Qatar and Turkey hijacked the leadership of Hamas, and they started shifting the public opinion in the Gaza Strip from more pro-Iran, pro-Syria, from pro-Hezbollah, let's say, camp into more pro-Qatar and pro-Turkish. And this rift was very obvious in 2011 when the Syrian war erupted and the CIA started its covert operations in Syria and the regime change war in Syria. And what happened basically is that Hamas, which had its headquarters and offices in Syria, and they were supported, backed, protected by the Syrian government, and also given intelligence support, technical support, logistical support, military training, military knowledge, how to assemble weapons, how to assemble missiles, how to build these military equipments, how to repair these military equipments, all happened in Syria. And if you remember, in 2003, when Saddam Hussein has been removed and Colin Powell came to Syria to put forward, to present the dictates of Washington, D.C. to Assad, telling him that he has to close the offices of Hamas, Islamic Jihad, Hezbollah in Damascus, and stop supporting them and giving them material support or tangible support. And Assad rejected that back then, right? So the rest is history. But in 2011, because Hamas leadership has been under immense pressure by Qatar and Turkey, and also under big influence of Qatar and Turkey, and also the financial interest was with Qatar, because Qatar has the money in the region, not Syrians. Syrians are not able to pay to the Hamas leadership or the salaries of the Hamas political bureau. But the Qataris are able to do that. Syrians were ready to give them their military knowledge and intelligence support and logistical support, but not cash money. But some of these people, for example, Khalid Mish'al, also Ismail Haniyeh, unfortunately, they have chosen to be on the side of Qatar and Turkey in 2011, and they betrayed Syria. And they even moved out of Syria voluntarily, and they moved to Qatar. And even they supported some of the armed groups in Syria, in Damascus, especially in the Yarmouk camp where the Palestinians live. And they formed some brigades against the Syrian army. And this was a betrayal for Syria, in my opinion. And the Syrians never forgotten about it. And now that Haniyeh died, was assassinated, I saw many pro-Assad Syrians were they were not, at least not mourning the death and the assassination of Haniyeh, because they feel betrayed by these people. Haniyeh, in the past few years, 2-3 years from now, he was changing his rhetoric and tone, and he wanted to reconcile with Syria again. But the doors were not really big open wide to him, right, to Syria. So this is what happened. And now, as Haniyeh was assassinated in Iran, and after that, the Hamas leadership in the region, they have picked the Yahya Sinwar. Yahya Sinwar is allegedly the mastermind behind the October 7 operation against Israel. And this is a message from first Hamas to the Israelis that you killed the one who negotiates, because Haniyeh was the negotiator. Now we choose the one who fights. So, in my opinion, this is also an attempt by the Israeli side to radicalize Hamas and push them into rejection and refusal to negotiate with the Israeli side. Because remember, in 2017, Hamas, under the influence, as I said, Qatar and Turkey, because they're the ones who took over the payments and the money in the Gaza Strip since 2007. In 2017, Hamas changed its charter, and since then they never called for the extermination of the Israeli state as a political entity, but rather they accepted a two-state solution. This was the influence of Qatar and Turkey. So now that Yahya Sinwar is coming back to the scene as someone who he was the mastermind, allegedly, behind this October 7 military operation against the Israelis, then one could argue that Hamas itself is also headed toward more radical, quote-unquote, stance vis-a-vis Israel, and that is probably going to lead into less negotiations between the both sides. And this was something that we were hoping for, especially in the case of the hostage exchanges and the ceasefire. Now that we want ceasefire in Gaza, but will the Palestinians now talk to the Israelis after Sinwar? This is a real question. We don't know. Because Sinwar, even if he negotiates, his demands, he's a military man, he's a tough man. He was a prisoner in the Israeli occupation prisons, and he was released in a prison exchange deal. So once he was released, he continued his mission, let's say, in the Gaza Strip against the occupation forces. So what's going to be the position of Hamas now in this regard? I think that Hamas is going to be less diplomatic and will pursue more military means in this case. And this is something that the Israelis, they either never learn or they do it on purpose. Because there are so many people that, for example, in Israel, they want to eliminate, for example, they eliminated Haniyeh now, right? Haniyeh, Ismail Haniyeh. So the successor is more hardliner. They assassinate many of the leaderships in the Palestinian ranks, whether in Palestine or the Lebanese, for example, among the ranks of Hezbollah, or even Qasem Soleimani. I would consider it an Israeli or American operation. The status of these countries and these players against the Israeli occupation and the American hegemony in the region is only getting more emboldened and strengthened by these assassinations, because many people come to positions of power in military and security positions, and after some time they understand that everything has limitations. They start thinking more strategically, not more like hot-headed, for example. But when you assassinate these people, you're also pushing the grassroots of these organizations, of these players, into more radicalization. Or when I say radicalization, I don't mean in a negative way, but more emboldened, let's say, and determined to fight against the Israeli forces. So this is what's going to happen now, and Israel has to deal with this situation. There is an important element in this, and this was something shared by Elijah Maguinier. He's a regular guest on Syriana Analysis, very respectful analyst, and I would like to share what he wrote about this case, and I agree with him on this. He said, so let me just zoom in a little bit for us to see it better. It is highly significant that the Hamas leadership in Syria has chosen Yahya Sinwar to replace Ismail Haniyeh as the head of the Hamas political bureau, following a wide consultation with Hamas leadership in different parts of the Middle East. This is a double message to Israel about Syria's role. So the political leadership of Hamas leadership in Syria, because recently some of them, they returned to Syria after some sort of reconciliation and mediation from the Hezbollah and the Iranian side. Syria is not giving that tangible support any longer to Hamas, but they reopened their arms after some changes in the Hamas leadership, and some of the Hamas people returned to Damascus. And these people have picked and elected Sinwar. So this is also, I would argue that Damascus was aware of it, and they had the knowledge, and they also supported this decision for Sinwar to become the next head of the political bureau. And notice that Sinwar is a military guy, and they appointed him as the head of the political bureau. So you can now imagine where Hamas is headed toward. I think in this case, the case of Syria is very, very important. Sinwar recently, 2 years ago or so, he had a speech, and he said that they are looking forward for a full compromise and reconciliation with, he called Syria, Syria's Assad. And he said, Surya al-Assad, if you know in Arabic, like they call Syria Surya al-Assad, like the Assad of Syria or Syria's Assad, etc. So they were looking forward for a full reconciliation with Syria's Assad, because they say Syria is the strategic depth of the resistance against the occupation forces. This is according to Sinwar. So he was working on reconciliation, and this will, in my opinion, or would, let's say, this would accelerate the reconciliation now with Hamas, between Damascus and Hamas, number one. And number two, this could also increase any sort of support that Syria is still giving to Hamas, whether media support or logistical support. Syria is not, when the October 7 attacks happened, and when the leadership of Syria was asked about it, and rest assured they didn't know about it at all. But when they learned about it, they were suspicious. They were suspicious of Hamas, and rightfully so. I mean, in Syria, they were stabbed from the back, and they didn't want to put all their trust in this operation. Some of them were suspicious, but now that everything is clear, and the intentions of Israel is clear, that they want to ethnically cleanse the Palestinians or commit a genocide against them, completely annihilate them. And this is not something that I say, that is my analysis. The Israeli officials say. This week, Smotrich said that killing 2 million Palestinians with hunger, and starvation, could be morally justified, but the international community won't allow them to do. So if the international community, quote unquote, allows Israel to kill 2 million people with starvation, they would do it. Right? This is what Smotrich said this week. So I would argue that the Syrians also think strategically in this case, and there is an intersection of interest between Hamas and Syria when it comes to Israel. Of course, they will always the disagreements will remain between the both sides, especially when it comes to ideological differences, to the connections of Hamas to the Muslim Brotherhood, to Turkey and Qatar. But as long as the Qatari leadership is moving closer to Iran and Hezbollah, they are in parallel moving closer to Damascus, I would argue. And this will open the doors for more cooperation and support from the Syrian side to the people in Gaza. Because remember, Syria has given a lot to the Palestinians in Gaza, although some of them are live in self-denial, unfortunately, because also the Palestinians, just like any other people, they could be propagandized. And as I mentioned, the Qatari money and the Qatari media outlets, they played a destructive role in Gaza, and they psyoped the Palestinians there and brainwashed them. So many of I don't want to even say many, but there were many Palestinians who were on the side of these so-called rebels in Syria when the event started in Syria, because they were brainwashed by Al Jazeera. And I don't want to play blame games now, but many of them have woken up now after October 7 and seeing that how the so-called Syrian opposition figures, journalists are celebrating and supporting Israel against Iran, against Hezbollah, against Ansarullah. And those are the only parties supporting the Palestinians nowadays, right? So the Palestinians have waken up to the bitter truth that the Syrian so-called opposition is basically a CIA cutout, and they are pro-Israeli collaborators, basically, right? And unfortunately, this is the bitter truth that they don't want to really accept, and especially on the side of these Syrian opposition figures. And yesterday, Nasrallah, the leader of Hezbollah, he made a speech, and he said something during this speech. I would just quote it for you. And he said, Syrian opposition is an agent of Israel. And this was something that was posted by, I think this is a Turkish journalist, and he wanted to, I would argue, let me see, this is it, yeah. So he wanted to discredit Nasrallah, of course, because Nasrallah said Syrian opposition is an agent of Israel. And I said, where is the lie? And I can assure you guys, I can put links after links, articles after articles, even from the mainstream media outlets, pictures, confessions, UN reports, documents, just clearly show that Israel supported the Syrian opposition fighters, those who were carrying arms in near the Golan Heights and fighting against the Syrian forces, Hezbollah forces. Those were supported directly by Israel, giving cash money, weapons, and when they were injured, they were treated in Israeli hospitals, right? So this is very, very important in my opinion. I think in this case, while we're speaking about this, because as I said, some of these Palestinian ordinary people and journalists, Okay, I will share with you a video, because this is an amazing video that you could see. For example, even among the Palestinians, some of them are very mad of these Palestinians who supported this revolution in Syria, or they are against, let's say, or they are against the Iranians and the Hezbollahs for obvious reasons, especially that the Al Jazeera and the Qatari side, they have been brainwashing the Palestinians for long. I'm just checking this. Yes, it's here. So I found the video. So I will show you a video now, guys. You can please follow the subtitles of this video. And it's very important to watch this video just for you to understand how the conversation and the debate is ongoing in Palestine, in West Asia, Syria, Lebanon, Iran, Hezbollah, and all these players, because they are Palestinians who are now pro-resistance or pro, let's say, Hamas, but at the same time they are anti-Iran and anti-Hezbollah and anti-Syria, right? This is a video from a Palestinian intellectual. His name is Nizar Banat. Nizar Banat was used to post videos regularly on his Facebook, Twitter, YouTube channels. He was very active from the West Bank. So he was in Palestine, and he used to preach and give educational videos to the people in Palestine. And sometimes he was angry and mad at the Palestinians who were supporting this so-called Syrian opposition, who are supported by the CIA and the Mossad, and also other groups, or they were against groups in the region, such as Hezbollah, such as Ansarullah, such as the Iranians, for example, when these parties used and still give tangible support to the Palestinians, right? And Nizar Banat, unfortunately speaking, he has been killed, assassinated by the Palestinian police in 2021. The Palestinian police that belongs to Mahmoud Abbas. Mahmoud Abbas, the current president of the Palestinian Authority, who is a collaborator with the Israelis and the Americans, he ordered his killing, and the security people and the police came to his apartment and they assassinated him, executed him in his apartment. Why? When you watch this video, you will know why. So take a look and focus on the subtitles, guys. Enjoy.
تحياتي للجميع. الناس اللي مش عاجبها إيران، من وين لك الصواريخ يا حبيبي؟ طب ما أنت بتصفق للصواريخ وبتصفر لها وبتكون مبسوط وأنت مع المقاومة، من وين لك الصواريخ هاي؟ اللي حمد غزة، أنا مش تستحي وتخجل منك إله. بقول لك إنه إيران تستخدم القضية الفلسطينية من أجل نشر التشيع. إيران لو بدها تنشر التشيع ليش تتحمل 42 سنة حصار؟ كذا 100 مليار دولار حجزت لها، وبتعطيك من قوت يومها، بتصرف عليك وعلى المقاومة الفلسطينية. مش بحاجة. الدولة الوحيدة يعني من دول العالم كلها وضعت بند ثابت في موازنتها، في موازنة خبز المواطن الإيراني وضعت بند دعم الثورة الفلسطينية بصرف النظر مين كان، فتح، جبهة شعبية، شيوعي، يساري، ضراب طبل، ما تدخلت نهائيا بتركيبتنا الأيديولوجية لفكرة المقاومة. خذ صير زلمة وحارب. مشكلة إيران مع أمريكا مش من جديد، مش من بدايات الثورة السورية، مع الاحترام يا متخلف منك إله. مشكلة الإيرانيين مع أمريكا بدأت عام 1953 حين انقلبت أمريكا، قادت انقلاب على حكومة محمد مصدق وعلى رغبة الشعب الإيراني الذي طرد الشاه في 53. اجت أمريكا وبريطانيا دبروا انقلاب على المرحوم محمد مصدق ورجعوا الشاه، والموساد كان شريك في ذلك. الثأر الأمريكي الإيراني بلش من زمان، بس إيران يعني أمة عندها كرامة وعندها شرف وعارفة بالضبط أن وجود الأمريكي هو المشكلة، وجود الإسرائيلي هو المشكلة. إيران تريد أن تحمي عمق العربي، إحنا المفروض نطلع على إيران كجزء من العمق الإسلامي. الإيراني شريكك حضاريا وتاريخيا وجغرافيا ودينيا شئت أم أبيت، هذا شريك غصب عنك ومن حقه أن يقود مرحلة. أنت كعربي فرطت في كل أماناتك التاريخية، فرطت في أمانتك على قوميتك، فرطت في أمانتك على الإسلام، فرطت في أمانتك حتى على لغتك. صار الإيراني يجيدها أكثر منك. شو عندك؟ يلا تفضل. في قاعدة وجودية في علم السياسة، إذا لم يكن لديك خطتك فأنت مجبر على أن تقبل أن تكون جزء من خطة الآخرين. غصب عنك بدك تكون جزء من خطة الآخر لأنه ما عندك خطة. طب شو خطتكم يا أهلنا السنة؟ شو خطتك يا حبيبي؟ أن تكون مفعول به أمريكيا زي حكام الخليج؟ لا، لازم تكون عندك خطتك، لازم تكون فاعل ضمن المحور الجديد اللي إيران إلها 40 سنة بتبني فيه، ودفعت مقابل ذلك دم وحصار 42 سنة. جزء من هذا الشعور المشوه الممسوخ اللي بيحملوه كثير من الناس ضد إيران، لأنه العربي شاعر بعقدة النقص التي تعتريه لأنه مدعوس عليه بين الأمم، مستكثر أنه الفارسي ينهض. طيب ما هي التركي ناهض، ليش مش موقفين كثير ضد التركي؟ التركي حكمك وأذلك، وعلامات البسطار التركي موجودة على يعني امتداد هذا الوطن العربي الكبير. طب ليش مش من حق الإيراني؟ لأنه التركي دعس عليك بالبسطار وعلى أجدادنا بالبسطار، من حقه وممتاز وضع التركي، بينما الإيراني لأنه إحنا حكمناه مش من حقه أنه ينهض ومش من حقه أنه يكون أمة. أكثر من هيك عبط وغباء لا يمكن الواحد يلاقي، يعني فعلا شيء يعني بقمة الاستفزاز. طيب مش عاجبك المشروع الإيراني، شو الإشي اللي ممكن يعجبك؟ وين البديل؟ طوابير ممن يريدون الذهاب إلى عملية سلام. كيف؟ تخرب علاقتنا بسوريا بإيران، بعديها بتصفي انه يا جماعه ما بنقدرش نخوض حروب مع اسرائيل، الحروب عبثيه ومدمره، ما فيش حدا بيدعمنا، ما انتم منافقين، ما انتم اهل تقيا، اقسم بدماء الشهداء جميعا، اقسم بدماء وديع حداد المسيحي وسليماني الشيعي واحمد ياسين السني، اقسم بدماء الثلاثه أنكم كاذبون، وأننا في أهل السنة أكثر الناس نفاقا واستخداما للتقية. فبلاش زي ما بنحكيها بالعامية الفلسطينية الطفطحة الزايدة هاي. أنت وظيفتك أن تحصن المجتمع من انتشار فكر الهزيمة وانتشار فكر العمالة. إيران دولة إلها 42 سنة تحت حصار، بأي حق أمريكا بتحاصرها؟ أنت قبلان الحصار الأمريكي يخلف على إيران وحلفاء إيران إنهم أخرجوا الأمريكي والفرنسي من لبنان عام 1983. الرجال الأشداء من حزب الله في لبنان نسفوا مقر المارينز، قتلوا 420 جندي أعتقد، الرقم كان ضخم، والمقر الجنود الفرنسيين طلعوهم نهائيا، وصفت ساحة القتال بينهم وبين الإسرائيلي. هاي رجال، هاي الناس اللي بتفهم كيف تخطط وبتعرف متى بتكون الضربة الدامية هي اللازمة. إيران قاعدة بتنجح في معاركها. إيران دولة شغالة مبدئيا على من 42 سنة على إخراج الأمريكي والإسرائيلي من المنطقة، مش عشان تحتلها، عشان تأمن شرها. فتقول لي مشروع إيراني يخلف عليهم انهم قادرين يحموا حالهم وسط هذا الجار العربي الاحمق. طيب وين امتك السنيه؟ شو كم طلقه دخلت، كم طلقه مسدس دخلت عليك من الاردن؟ اذا امتك السنيه رافضه انها تقوم بواجبها تجاهك، الاف المقاتلين ودوا على سوريا. ليش بدنا نروح بشار الاسد اللي ما ورطش ولا بأي اتفاق سلام، بدنا نروحه وبعدين نحرر فلسطين. طيب ما انتم روحتوه من درعا ومن الجولان ومن المناطق المحاذية لإسرائيل. شو كانت النتيجة يا جبهة النصرة؟ كانت النتيجة انه الجنود جبهة النصرة كانوا يعالجون في المستشفيات الميدانية الإسرائيلية. فحبايبنا الله يرضى عليكم أنصار كل الحركات، يعني الحج فؤاد الشوبكي والكابتن عمر العكاوي ما زالوا في السجن، أبطال كارين إيه، سفينة السلاح اللي بعثها الجنرال سليماني لحركة فتح أثناء انتفاضة الأقصى، في الوقت الذي شنت فيه الأنظمة العربية حصارا حتى على ياسر عرفات ما عدا سوريا. استعوا على حالكم. وكمان مرة تعازينا لهذه الأمة العظيمة باستشهاد عظمائها، ومعا وسويا حتى تحرير الأرض والإنسان. لكن يجب تحرير الإنسان العربي من هذه الطائفة من العملاء التي صارت تحتل مساحة واسعة في المجتمع، عملاء الغباء، عملاء الNGOs، عملاء نشر الفتنة، عملاء بث فكرة الهزيمة. شكرا جزيلا لكم.
Every time I watch this video, it's like I watch this video every day. Every day I see some of the people in Lebanon, Syria, Palestine, Jordan, they're speaking ill about the players supporting the Palestinians. It's like I watch this video just to relieve my anger, you know, like this guy is so on point. It's like and as our friend, by the way, he's from Palestine, Amir says, Nizar's speeches are so relevant today than ever, and this is 100% true. And thanks for sharing this video. This is literally the most articulate way to communicate. It's indeed like sometimes I wish, because otherwise sometimes I want to use my hands, you know, like hitting people when I speak with this type of people, and they're like telling me those Farsis in Iran, they are conspiring against our Muslim Ummah. And under the table, they are making deals with Israel. They are sleeping in the same bed. Don't believe them. Like, they think everything is happening in the region is a theater. Like, let's suppose everything is theater. Why would they do theater? Because you're so relevant, so important for them. You're nothing in front of these big empires and big players in the region. Why would they play a theater for you? For what? To entertain you? To fool you? For what? So they were spending billions of dollars to entertain you, to play a theater. Why would they play a theater like this for you? You know, it's really infuriating. It's really frustrating sometimes, especially in the online world. People hiding behind their fake names and fake accounts and spitting hatred and sectarian divisions among the people in the region. And those are fifth columns, you know. It's very difficult. So, and just like Nizar Banat says, it's important to liberate the Arab human and people first before liberating Palestine. It's like free yourself first from all these thoughts and all these illusions and sectarian. I'm not talking about everyone, right? But there is an important element in the people who support Palestine. But I think I will stop there. I don't want to harm anyone's feelings now. Yesterday, Hassan Nasrallah gave a speech, and our friend Hala Jaber, who is a brilliant journalist, you can follow her on X, she summarized the speech. She said, highlights from Hezbollah Sayyid Nasrallah's speech. We, meaning Hezbollah, we are committed to responding after the assassination of Fuad Shukr, who was the commander, the highest ranking commander in Hezbollah, who was assassinated, I think, 10 days ago. Iran is obligated to respond after the assassination of martyr Haniyeh in Tehran, and Hezbollah is also obligated to respond after the assassination of martyr Fuad Shukr. So the response is coming. It didn't come yet, so we're waiting to see the nature of this response. And let me know, by the way, in the comments below, how do you see the nature and the type of this response? How do you speculate it? Yemenis are obligated to respond to Israel's bombing of Hodeidah port, and Israel's week-long wait for the resistance response is part of the battle, punishment, and response, he says. All of Israel is standing on one leg waiting for the resistance response, and we may see this for the first time. The Israeli wait for a week to respond is part of the punishment, and Iran, Hezbollah, and Yemen will respond, and most important thing is to act bravely and not emotionally. He also mentioned one thing about Syria. He said Syria is not required to intervene in combat because of its internal situation. Its armed forces are still deployed over hundreds of kilometers inside Syrian territory to confront the other project that still has eyes on Damascus. And this is what he said in this case about the Syrian participation in this conflict. So, this is about Syria from Nasrallah. I will just also no, I will not show you this. I will just head to final thing, and that is about Syria, because some of you also asked me what's happening in Syria. So it's very interesting to see what's happening in Syria. I didn't expect this. The pro-Syria or pro-Assad Syrian Arab tribal forces, who are trained by the Syrian army, started a large-scale attack on the positions of the Syrian Democratic Forces militia, which is backed by the United States, in east of Deir Ezzor, and take control of several villages and towns on the eastern bank of the Euphrates River near the city of Al-Mayadin. Guys, this is the map. So the contact line is the river, right? So there are tribal forces who are supported by the Syrian army. They started an offensive and moving towards on the eastern side of the shore, where the US occupation forces are stationed, and also the so-called Syrian Democratic Forces that are directly supported by the United States. The Arab tribal forces have taken full control of the water station in the town of Diban in the eastern countryside of Deir Ezzor, one of the largest points of the SDF militia in the town. Scenes of the Arab tribal forces in the city of Diban in the eastern suburbs of Deir Ezzor, and the siege of Al Omar oil field refinery in this city. US forces in Syria have been placed on high alert after the rapid advance of the Syrian tribal forces. The US Army has a military base in Al Omar field. So the tribal forces conquered a number of SDF checkpoints and strongholds in eastern Deir Ezzor province. And also scenes from those are war scenes that I don't want to show you because YouTube keeps suppressing the content when there is war. The US-backed SDF brings in huge military reinforcements, including tanks and armored vehicles, in north of Deir Ezzor, and heads to eastern countryside of Deir Ezzor. Fight is going on. So if you want to see the map, this is the map of control over Syria. So as you can see, the red is Syrian army positions. The black spots are ISIS cells still in the deserts of Syria. And on the right side, on the east, north, is the American occupation forces. This yellow side is all occupied by the US occupation forces and also the militias, those Syrian Democratic Forces. And if we zoom in a little bit, you will see that most of Syria's oil refineries, as you can see, are here on the eastern shore of the Euphrates, and the infighting is happening here. So these Arab tribes are trying to advance in the eastern shore of the Euphrates against the American occupation forces and against the ASDF. And this is a surprise move, in my opinion. Nobody expected it, but here we go. It's happening. It's happening, and it's brutal, and the Americans are flying their Air Force. So let's see how will the Americans respond in this case, and how where is this battle going on, but it's definitely a big pressure on the US in the midst of other conflict that it has to manage, one in Ukraine, the second in Israel, and also the trade war against Taiwan. So apparently the parties and the players that are anti-American and they want to kick the Americans out of the region, they are coordinating among each other for sure. And it is this attack, of course, it's surprising for me. I didn't expect it, but it's not surprising for the planners. They were planning for it. It was secret. And now they're adding more pressure on the Americans. So slowly but surely, in my opinion, the American presence in the region will be minimized, and the influence and the leverage of the Americans will also decrease gradually but surely, and this will lead into losing its absolute hegemonic status over the region, and it will be replaced by local players, of course, Iran, Syria, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, UAE, and others. Let's see how will they find a formula to coexist. But also on the international level, the Chinese and the Russians will also fill the vacuum, but this is not going to be another imperialist project by them, but rather a cooperation. And in German, they say Augenhöhe. It's like on the eyes position, like with mutual respect. So this is what's going to happen. Americans are going to face resistance everywhere now, and the Russians and the Chinese and the Iranians are going to support the local forces and the other allied forces with them against the American occupation forces in Iraq, in Syria, and this will lead into big crisis and the dilemma in Washington, D.C., especially before the elections that is going to happen in November. And remember, this period is a window of opportunity for these parties to mobilize and fight mutually against the U.S., against the U.S. when the U.S. is involved and is busy in its internal affairs, domestic affairs, basically the elections. They cannot make crucial decisions in this case. So let me know your opinion, guys. Do you think that the Syrians will manage to kick out the American forces soon, or this is going to be just a rehearsal and the threat against the Americans that we could do this against you if you do that? So it's like a escalatory step in order to deter the Americans from doing other things, or this is going to be a serious battle to kick the American forces out of Syria? Let me know your comments let me know your opinions in the comments below. Guys, this was fun doing this stream with you. I was so ready to have a conversation with a respected guest who she didn't manage to come because she couldn't log into StreamYard. Anyways, so I improvised this live streaming for you, and I addressed to you Sinwar's election and its regional repercussions. I have given you historical and political context, and then we spoke about Hezbollah, Iran, and this rift among the Palestinians, and we watched the video of Nizar Banat. And finally, we spoke a little bit about Syria. I hope you liked it. If you do, please hit the like button, guys, before leaving this video. It's very important for me. And if you like to support this independent work, please become a patron. The link is scrolling on the screen, patreon.com/Syriana Analysis, with your great help. I can continue and bringing to you quality material analysis and commentaries. And also, as you may know, I also cooperating with an interview producer from now on. So he is booking guests for this channel, and this is great. And I'm very happy that thanks to your support, I was able to cooperate with an interview producer. So as much as I receive support, I'm only going to develop this work for better content, better reach, bigger reach. If you want to support the reach of this channel, I would really applaud you. Share this video with your friends, and I will see you tomorrow, guys. Tomorrow is Thursday, 5 p.m. Central European Time, 11 a.m. Eastern American Time. Peace be upon you, upon your families. I just want to give last shout out to Hussein Brazil. His R7's taking over their oil fields now. I just explained that. Amazing. And also Samuel Weber, who just became a YouTube member. Salam, guys.